This is the nightmare of the second half of the 20th century. A suitcase with an atomic bomb inside it. Once you steal the nuclear material, any physics graduate can do the rest. It's a timing device with an electrical circuit that fires two explosive charges which push the radioactive material together fast enough for it to go critical, and boom. And there is no security force on Earth that can prevent some fanatical nutcase from placing this gently in downtown anywhere. This breakthrough in military technology completely unbalances the situation carefully worked for over the last 30 years by the major nuclear powers. The nightmare is what the result will be.
Welcome, time travelers, one and all, to Fitton's Time Machine. That sequence by James Burke in Connections, long before the 9/11 attacks, sent shivers down my spine. Since 9/11, security measures have become more sophisticated, yet the threat remains. Burke's demonstration spawned a novel that I wrote called Redshift. Redshift was about a terrorist attack on United States cities in 1986. But it was also about a time travel complex in the fictitious Hastings Mountain, Colorado. As the book opens, we are clearly in an ancillary timeline where President Kennedy is alive and well in 1986. This alternate timeline theme is not a what if or this is the way it would have been. The Kennedy program, syndicated on radio in the 1980s, is merely a device. I could have imagined, as Carl Sagan would have said, a billion JFK alive scenarios. This forum works because it allowed me to bring Kennedy's thinking in 1963 to an actual speculation. The book later morphed into the title 1961, and with good reason. Patch ends up there. Let's hear the Kennedy program audio from the beginning of 1961. He smiled at the thought, turned on the radio, and scanned the dial for the Kennedy program. He found it on a scratchy AM station. The former president maintained the most listened to political information program in the United States.
About what the foreign policy of the United States should be. We need to make it clear we should be the force of the world which strive for peace, work together with emerging governments. Yeah, well, that's all well and good. We need to stand up to our enemies. Do you have any idea what this means? Yes, I've had a few years of public service. You should have taken the general's advice and bombed Cuba during your administration and started World War III with 90 million Americans dead in a matter of minutes. Just let me add, if the caller is still there, right here, during the 8 years of the Kennedy administration, we became fully aware that by putting 100% trust in all military advice restricts one to a certain mindset. The generals from the CIA were in favor of the Vietnam action. Vietnam, to address your assertion, was not in the general interest of the United States. And I think it was the feeling in 1965 when we began bringing our forces back. In 1963, I signed NSAM 263, beginning the withdrawal of 1,000 troops from Vietnam. This, of course, was just the first step to total withdrawal in 1965. Even President Nixon said it was a mistake to bring the boys back. He said that at the time, yes, and I won't belabor that point, but I will say that reaching for peace and talking with the Russians led to the final collapse of the Soviet Union and led to terrorism. There are ramifications to every move on the world stage in the post-Cold War era, and we have to adjust to those realities. But we also must realize that our actions in the long run can lead to terrorism by supplying unwarranted armaments to warring parties. Nixon would disagree. I'm sure he would and will. We will have an ample opportunity to discuss the ramifications with President Nixon when he is my guest for all 4 hours on the Thursday. We will pause now and be back in the next half hour. You're listening to the Kennedy Program on the World News Network.
There are historic documents about Vietnam. National Security Action Memorandum number 263, signed on October 11th, 1963, just slightly over a month before he was assassinated in Dallas. This memorandum ordered the withdrawal of 1,000 military personnel from Vietnam by the end of 1963. On the White House tapes of October 2nd, 1963, Secretary of Defense Robert S. McNamara and General Taylor conferred. This summation gives a clear view of what Kennedy had in mind. Quote, "We nonetheless can withdraw the bulk of our U.S. forces according to the schedule we've worked out, because we can train the Vietnamese to do the job." And then Taylor had a memorandum to the Joint Chiefs 2 days later, October 4th, 1963, in which he conveyed the decision with no contingency. The troops were to be withdrawn. All planning would be based on that decision. This radio sequence tells us that we are in another timeline, but we know it's not our timeline. It is the pending threat of nuclear annihilation in that timeline of 1986 that begins the change. He gazed out the open window at the majestic jagged peaks, scattered with towering evergreens tapering down like silent soldiers guarding the rock-carved canyon. This spaciousness contrasted with the claustrophobic life of Sector 13's underground facility in Colorado. He tried to forget terrorism and his job. Kate would meet him in Golden Gate Park. He planned it perfectly, flying her in from New York. An outdoor scene filled his thoughts. 2 violinists and a noted flutist under the trees overlooking the bay, and a fully catered meal spread across a linen-covered tablecloth. As they dined outside, he would present her with a sparkling diamond secured by one of Mankiewicz's buddies from South Africa. After San Francisco, they would drive east and spend tomorrow night under the towering sequoias in Yosemite. The cellular buzz from his second phone broke the mountain silence. Patch winced at the bulky unlisted mobile phone on the passenger seat. Mankiewicz had promised 3 hours ago not to call him again. But how did he get this number? Patch wanted to let it ring, but reluctantly grabbed the phone from its box and pushed the green button. "Ray, what the hell?"
How did you know it was me, Patch?
Who else is such a pain in the ass?
Well, that's true.
Patch held the wheel with one hand and rolled his eyes as he neared the mountain crest. Mankiewicz's gravelly voice punctuated the transmission.
How's the scenery up there, Captain?
"Ray, leave me alone. I think you have your damn watch set on a timer. Just beeped, and now it's time to bother Kincaid again." The signal weakened.
Timer? That's not a bad idea. Listen up, Patch. You need to get to a land phone.
"Ray, this is my unlisted phone. At least I thought it was. I must be 50 miles from a regular phone."
You're already past Truckee and Tahoe, and now you're approaching the Rainbow Bridge near Donner Summit.
"I just got off I-80 to get some peace on the old road. I swear you'd track me next time I take a leak."
Well, we can do that.
Patch grinned slightly as he gazed downriver through the slotted concrete bridge. The evergreen slopes above the river spread like an artist's foreground into the magnificent, deep, distant blue mountains. "Get lost, Ray."
Patch.
"What?"
Have a nice day.
The line went silent, and Patch sneered and then smiled at the phone. He shifted up the rock ledge. The bridge and the river formed behind him in the side mirror. Somehow he thought of his dad. His father had died in 1979. They buried him with full honors in Kansas. In many ways, Mankiewicz had become a father figure at Sector 13. As a physicist, he worked with Hollis Leminski and Dr. Alexander Moon, quantizing electrons in electromagnetic fields. Then he expanded his work by teleporting particles through time. His success led to a classified construction of accelerators to move matter back and forth through time. His intelligence credentials landed him the top Sector 13 job in the early 1970s. While his decisions could be reasoned out with the precision of an advanced computer, he always empathized with his people. That empathy allowed him to motivate and steer his subordinates on the proper course. Patch trusted him without question. He looked skyward. "Okay, Uncle Ray, you win." Under the outline of the rock and fir-treed mountains, Patch rolled into a dusty lot housing a dilapidated gas station with dirty dark windows and a long porch. He slowed beyond a set of antiquated red and white pumps and stopped at the next phone booth. A heavy guy in denim farmer's overalls lounged next to a bulky red rusted Coke machine. Patch left the Suburban's door open, engine running, and entered the booth. He quickly dialed Mankiewicz, but the connecting took time. The porch guy's folded hands moved up and down slowly on his oversized stomach. Patch had difficulty seeing beyond the porch's darkened screen door and reflective station windows.
Mankiewicz.
"Great view up here, Ray. Only one thing, I can't enjoy the river. I can't enjoy the mountains. Some pain in the ass keeps annoying me."
"You're damn lucky I just don't pull you out of there right now, Patch. There's a ton of stuff coming over the intel."
Patch tilted his head back. "I don't care."
"I've just talked to Tom Shea. Apparently they're searching New York City for a possible nuclear device."
Mankiewicz had a crammed cigar in his mouth again.
"There are reports that other cities are being searched right now. I was afraid for your safety, and with you meeting your fiancée in San Francisco tomorrow."
Did Shea actually mention San Francisco?
"No, only New York."
"Tell me you're making this up, Ray." Thank God she's on her way to San Francisco. Mankiewicz talked to his people inside Sector 13's mountain complex and then strayed from the phone for nearly a minute. The sun sizzled the nape of Patch's neck as his heartbeat soared. He paced around the booth. "Ray, I'm here frying like a desert lizard, waiting for you to tell me if they're blowing up New York." Mankiewicz finished up with the group.
"Patch, it's not an alert or anything. Tom just says it's a precautionary measure."
"You and your precautionary measures. It sounds damn serious to me. I'm heading west. You should have told me all this on the cell phone."
"Cell phones can be monitored, Patch. Look how I found your position."
"I don't see terrorist groups having the expertise to pull off something like this. Is that all? Can I go have fun now?" Mankiewicz chuckled.
"Thought you ought to know there might be problems in other cities. Patch, you may live for risk, but the rest of us are mere human beings."
"Odds are with us. But if they go on alert or something, call me."
"Oh, I wouldn't think of breaking up your little party."
"Right." Patch set the phone back on the hook and wished he could relax like the man sleeping on the porch. He stepped into the Suburban, shut the door, and spun back on the highway. As he placed the reflective sunglasses over his eyes, diminishing the glare, he visualized a brilliant orange explosion and mushroom cloud rising over some American metropolis, sucking up the imploded buildings, streets, and people into a huge billowing fireball. Such far-fetched notions rattled his imagination as much as time travel. When I finished writing 1961, I was left with an agonizing, sober realization of just how one event can mess it up for the rest of us down the timeline. That's why the opening line of the book reads, "Consider time travel a risky venture." This is Robert P. Fitton, and I've been zooming into the past. Time travel books abide by historical events as they happened. Music, television, and daily events are concurrent with the time travel plot.